Be me, 28 years old, finally feeling like I'm coming into my own. Work as a project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm, nothing glamorous, but pays the bills. Spend most evenings at the community centre with the Women's Collective. We meet twice a week. Feels good to be surrounded by women who actually get it, who see the world for what it really is. We talk about everything, the pervasive nature of male violence, how they've structured every system to benefit themselves. My co-worker asked me to lunch today. Seemed nice enough until he tried to split the bill 50-50. Literally ordered a salad while he got steak and 2 beers. Told him exactly what I thought about men who can't even perform the basic courtesy of paying for a woman's meal. The look on his face was priceless. Just stammered something about equality. Yeah, equality, that's rich coming from someone who makes 30% more than me for the same work. Went home and called my friend Rachel. She understood completely. We spent an hour dissecting how men want all the benefits of the old system while pretending to support equality. 29 now. Went on a date with James from the gym. He seemed promising at first, fit, had his own business, seemed confident. Dinner was going well until he started talking about his 5-year plan. Just assumed I'd be interested in hearing about his financial goals, his investment portfolio. Asked him what he thought about the fact that men hoard resources while women still make 77 cents to their dollar. He got defensive, started talking about his female employees and how he pays them fairly. Sure, Jan, every man thinks he's the exception. Told him his defensiveness was typical fragile male ego. Couldn't handle even the slightest criticism. He asked for the check, paid for everything without even asking if I wanted to split it. Classic power move, using money to assert dominance. Texted him later that night to explain why his behavior was problematic. He never responded. Probably off finding some woman who'll fawn over his mediocre accomplishments. Started seeing Jordan a few months later. Met him at a friend's birthday party. He seemed different. Said he considered himself a feminist ally. Had read some of the same books I referenced. Finally, I thought, a man who actually does the work. First few dates were good. He listened when I talked, asked questions about my perspectives. Took him to one of our collective meetings as a guest, thought he'd appreciate being included. He contributed to the discussion, talked about toxic masculinity and how he was trying to unlearn harmful patterns. Felt weird though, watching him in that space. Something about the way he spoke, performing his feminism for approval. Later told him it felt inauthentic, like he was just trying to get validation from women. He looked hurt, said he was genuinely trying to understand and grow. That wounded look annoyed me more than anything. Told him I needed someone secure enough not to need constant reassurance. He said he wasn't asking for reassurance, just expressing that my accusation hurt. There it was, the fragility I'd been waiting for. Ended things that night. Men really can't handle being held accountable. 31, starting to notice my married friends talk differently around me. They edit themselves, avoid mentioning their partners too much. Like I'm some kind of threat to their relationships just because I point out obvious problems. Sarah announced her engagement last month. Couldn't even be happy for her. Her fiancé is nice enough but completely unremarkable. Works in IT, plays video games. She's settling, obviously. Probably feels the pressure of her age. Tried to talk to her about it. Asked if she was sure she wasn't just conforming to societal expectations. She got quiet, said she loved him, that he made her happy. Happiness? Such a low bar. I expected more from her. Went on a date with Eric, a high school teacher. Thought maybe someone in education would have a more developed social consciousness. He picked me up, opened my car door, the whole chivalry performance. Asked him why he felt the need to perform these outdated gender roles. He seemed confused, said he was just trying to be polite. Told him politeness rooted in patriarchal traditions is still patriarchy. At dinner, he talked about his students, seemed genuinely passionate about teaching. Mentioned how hard it is being a male teacher, how parents sometimes view him with suspicion, how he has to keep his classroom door open during one-on-one meetings, how he's careful never to be alone with female students. Started explaining to him about how those precautions exist because of centuries of male violence, how women have every right to be suspicious, how his discomfort was nothing compared to what women face. He got quiet, just nodded. Asked him why he wasn't engaging with what I was saying. He said he was listening, just didn't know what to say. Typical. Men always shut down when confronted with real issues. Told him I needed someone capable of actual dialogue. He drove me home in silence, didn't walk me to my door. The audacity, asking me to consider his feelings while refusing to perform basic courtesy. 32, Rachel got married. Didn't ask me to be a bridesmaid even though we've been friends for 6 years. Her sister told me later it was because Rachel was afraid I'd say something during the bachelorette party. Like I'm some kind of monster for having principles. Went to the wedding alone, watched all my friends slow dance with their mediocre partners. Each one of them compromised, settled for men who'll probably disappoint them eventually. Matched with David on a dating app, 34, lawyer, seemed intelligent from his profile. Our text conversations were engaging. He could actually construct an argument. Met for coffee, he suggested splitting the bill. Felt like a test, so I agreed. He seemed relieved, said he appreciated that I was genuinely interested in equality. Something about his relief irritated me, like he'd been burned before. Started seeing him regularly. He was careful, measured in how he spoke. Never offered opinions on gender issues unless I asked directly. When I did ask, his answers were always diplomatic, non-committal. Told him his fence sitting was cowardly, that silence in the face of injustice is complicity. He said he was trying to listen to my perspective without making it about him. Asked why he was so afraid to have a real opinion. He sighed, said every time he expressed a view, I found a way to tell him why he was wrong, that he'd learned it was safer to just listen. The fact that he thought safety was something he needed to worry about in our relationship told me everything. Men really do make everything about them, even conversations about their own behavior. Stopped returning his calls, met someone at my colleague's dinner party. Alex, worked in finance, tall, confident, had this commanding presence in the room. Everyone seemed to gravitate toward him, men and women. Started talking to him by the drinks table. He was funny, self-assured. Gave me his number without me asking. Just assumed I'd be interested. The assumption annoyed me, but I texted him anyway. Our first date, he made reservations without asking what I wanted. Showed up, and the restaurant was perfect. Exactly my taste. Suspicious that he'd somehow guessed right. He ordered for both of us. Didn't even consult the menu. Interrupted him to tell the waiter I'd order my own food. Alex seemed amused, not embarrassed. That confidence, it was attractive, but also infuriating. Told him his assumption that he could order for me was a perfect example of male entitlement. He laughed. Actual laughed. Said I was probably right. His easy agreement felt condescending somehow. Spent the rest of dinner explaining to him the various ways men assert dominance through small actions. He listened, nodded occasionally, didn't argue. When the check came, he paid without discussion. Didn't even bother asking. Just handled it like it was expected. On one hand, finally a man who understood basic courtesy. On the other hand, the power dynamic it created was uncomfortable. Dated him for 2 months, the whole time felt off balance. He was successful, paid for everything, made decisions confidently. Exactly the kind of traditional masculinity that props up the patriarchy. But also, being with him felt easy in a way I didn't want to examine too closely. Ended it after he mentioned wanting kids someday. Told him I wasn't interested in being someone's broodmare. He said that wasn't what he meant, that he was just sharing his future hopes. The fact that his future hopes included using a woman's body for reproduction was enough. 35 now, starting to notice men don't approach me the way they used to. Probably intimidated by a woman who knows her worth. Most of my collective friends are younger now. The women my age drifted away into relationships and marriages. Find myself being the one with the most experience, the one guiding newer members. Feels important, being a mentor to younger women. Teaching them not to settle, not to compromise themselves for male approval. My mother called today, asking when I'm going to meet someone nice. Told her I'm not interested in meeting someone nice. I'm interested in dismantling oppressive systems. She got quiet, then said she worries about me being alone. Being alone isn't the same as being lonely, I told her. But lately the apartment feels bigger somehow. Catch myself scrolling through social media, looking at wedding photos, baby announcements. These women, trapped in cycles of domestic servitude, and they look happy. The delusion is powerful. Went on a date with Tom, seemed promising from his messages. Showed up, and he was shorter than his photos suggested. Not that height matters, but the dishonesty was annoying. He was nervous, kept fidgeting with his napkin. Asked him about his work. He's a nurse. A male nurse? Interesting. At least he's in a caring profession. He started talking about how hard it's been, being one of few men in his department, how some patients refuse his care, request female nurses, how his co-workers sometimes exclude him from conversations. Began explaining to him about how women have faced workplace discrimination for centuries, how his isolated experience didn't compare to systemic oppression. He nodded, said he understood, just was sharing his experience. The need for validation, it's exhausting. He excused himself to the bathroom, and I could see his hands shaking slightly. Probably anxiety. Men are so fragile now. Came back and seemed different, quieter. Asked if he was okay, he said he was fine. The date ended early, he said he had an early shift. Didn't offer to pay for his half until I reminded him. Can't even handle basic adult responsibilities. 37, had my annual review today. My boss, Jennifer, mentioned that some co-workers find my communication style challenging. Asked for specific examples, she danced around it. Finally admitted that several people, mostly men, have complained that I'm hostile in meetings. Hostile? That's what they call. A woman who doesn't smile and agree with everything. Told Jennifer this was clearly a gender issue, that assertive men are called leaders. She said it wasn't about assertiveness, it was about dismissing others' input. The fact that she's internalized misogyny this deeply is depressing. Didn't get the promotion I was expecting. Sarah invited me to her baby shower. Went out of obligation, watched her open endless pink packages. She's having a girl. Everyone kept saying how lucky she was. Lucky to be bringing another woman into this world to suffer under patriarchy. Held my tongue mostly, until someone mentioned hoping the baby would be pretty like her mom. Couldn't help but point out how we reduce girls to their appearance from birth. The room got quiet. Sarah looked embarrassed. Her husband, mediocre as ever, put his arm around her. She leaned into him like he was protecting her from me. Left early, no one tried to stop me. Started seeing Miles, met him at a bookstore. He was browsing the philosophy section, seemed thoughtful. We talked for an hour about existentialism, about meaning-making. He asked for my number, seemed genuine. Our first few dates were intellectual, stimulating. He asked questions, seemed interested in my perspectives on everything. Told him about the collective, about my views on gender and power. He listened carefully, sometimes pushed back gently on certain points. The pushback was annoying, but at least he was engaging. Started spending more time together. He cooked dinner at his place. Noticed he had photos of his daughter on the fridge. Asked about her. He got this sad look. Said he only sees her every other weekend, that the custody arrangement was brutal. How his ex-wife had made allegations during the divorce that were later proven false. But the damage was done. He'd lost time with his daughter he'd never get back. Started to feel bad for him until I remembered the statistics. Told him that women don't just make up allegations, that there's usually truth to them. The look on his face, like I'd slapped him. He said quietly that he had court documents proving his innocence, that he'd been suicidal during that period, that he'd almost lost everything. The mention of suicide felt manipulative, like he was trying to make me feel guilty. Told him I wasn't comfortable dating someone with such a complicated situation. He didn't argue, just asked me to leave. Saw him one more time, months later, at a coffee shop. He was alone, looked older somehow, tired, pretended not to see him. 39, the collective has a new coordinator. She's 24, passionate, reminds me of myself at that age. Except she has a boyfriend, brings him to social events. He sits quietly in the corner during our meetings, doesn't contribute. Asked her once why she brings him, she said he's interested in learning. He doesn't look interested, he looks uncomfortable. Probably should be uncomfortable, sitting in a room full of women discussing his complicity in oppression. My doctor mentioned egg freezing today. Wasn't even there for that, just a regular checkup. She brought it up casually. Said if I was thinking about future family planning. Told her I wasn't interested in conforming to biological imperative. She nodded professionally, made a note in her chart. Drove home and couldn't stop thinking about it. Looked up the costs, the success rates, the age statistics. Closed the laptop and poured a glass of wine. 40. There was a birthday thing. Some friends organised it, mostly younger women from the collective. They were sweet. Got me a cake. Some books they thought I'd like. One of them, Emma, mentioned her boyfriend proposed. She seemed apologetic. Telling me, like she was betraying something. Told her congratulations, tried to mean it. She showed me the ring, a modest diamond, clearly not expensive. He's a teacher, makes barely anything. But she looked thrilled. Asked her the practical questions, about finances, about her career plans. Her face fell a little with each question. She said she knew it wouldn't be easy, but they loved each other. Love. Like that's enough to build a life on. Everyone got quiet after that, the party deflated. They left earlier than planned, probably to go talk about me somewhere else. Scrolling through dating apps feels different now. The men in my age range all specify they want women under 35. The audacity, these balding pot-bellied men thinking they can make demands. Matched with a few, tried to be more open-minded. Met Charles, 43, works in accounting. He was nice, boring, but stable. Talked about his hobbies, his routine, his small apartment. Asked what he was looking for, he said companionship, someone to share life with. No mention of changing the world, of growth, of consciousness raising. Just wanted someone to watch TV with and split bills. The lack of ambition was staggering. Told him I needed someone with a more developed vision for their life. He said his vision was simple, find someone kind and build something together. Simplistic, that's what men call it when they refuse to engage with complexity. Met James at a work conference, 45, seemed distinguished. We talked during the networking session. He was intelligent, well-read. Asked me to dinner, chose an upscale restaurant. Finally, someone with sophistication. Conversation was good until he mentioned his divorce. Said his wife left him for someone else, that he'd been devastated. How he'd thought they were happy, that he'd missed the signs. Asked him what signs he missed, tried to understand his role in the failure. He got defensive, said sometimes relationships just end. Pressed him on it, there had to be something he did wrong. His jaw tightened. Said he'd spent years in therapy examining his contributions. That he'd made peace with both his mistakes and the things beyond his control. The therapy mention felt like a red flag. Men in therapy often just learn to manipulate better. Told him I wasn't interested in being someone's rebound. He said it had been 4 years since his divorce. 4 years and he's still processing it. Too much baggage. Rachel invited me to lunch. Just us. Hadn't seen her one-on-one in over a year. She's pregnant with her second. Glowing in that insufferable way. Asked how I was doing. The question felt loaded. Told her I was great. Work was fine. Life was full. She nodded slowly, then asked if I was happy. Happiness is a construct designed to keep women compliant, I told her. She put down her fork, looked at me directly, said she was worried about me, that I seemed angry all the time. Told her I had reasons to be angry, that we all should be. She said anger was exhausting, that she used to feel it too. Used to, like she'd evolved past caring about injustice. Asked her if marriage and motherhood had lobotomized her critical thinking. She flinched, actually flinched, said that was cruel, that I'd been cruel for years and she'd excused it, that every conversation with me was an interrogation, a test she was set up to fail, that her husband was a good man who treated her as an equal partner. Good man, the most damning phrase women use to describe their settling. She paid for her meal and left. Haven't heard from her since. 42. My mother had a health scare. Spent a week helping her after her surgery, staying at my childhood home. My father took care of everything. Cooking, medications, helping her move around. Watched him change her bandages with such tenderness. Asked my mother once, while Dad was out getting groceries, if she ever felt diminished by needing help. She looked confused, said she'd done the same for him when he had his knee surgery. That partnership meant supporting each other, the simplicity of her worldview. It must be comforting to never question anything. Tried therapy myself, thought maybe I needed to process some things. The therapist, a woman in her 50s, listened to me describe my dating experiences. Asked what I was looking for in a partner. Listed my requirements. Someone successful, but not materialistic. Confident, but not arrogant. Someone who respected women, but didn't perform feminism. Who was masculine, but not toxically so. Someone emotionally available, but not needy. Who could lead, but not control. She asked how many people I thought could thread those needles. Told her that's exactly the problem. Men refuse to do the work of becoming better. She asked if I'd considered that some of these requirements contradicted each other. That confidence and leadership were often read as arrogance and control. That emotional availability required the vulnerability I seemed to punish. Felt attacked. Told her she clearly had internalized some things she needed to examine. Didn't go back. Emma's wedding was beautiful. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. Her teacher husband cried during the vows. The crying felt performative, but everyone else seemed moved. At the reception, watched them dance, watched her father give a toast. He talked about how his daughter had found a good man, wanted to stand up and object to the reduction of marriage to finding a man, but couldn't bring myself to ruin her day. She looked happy, genuinely happy. They left early, laughing, his hand on her lower back. Proprietary touch, ownership disguised as affection. Drove home alone, the apartment was dark. Sat in the car for 20 minutes before going inside. 43. Started noticing things I'd dismissed before. The homeless man outside my building who's been there for 2 years, everyone walks past him. Asked him once why he didn't go to a shelter. He said the men's shelter was full, always full, that there's a waiting list, that the women's shelter had resources, counseling, job training. The men's shelter had cots and meals if you were lucky. Told him about structural inequality, about who built the systems that failed him. He just nodded, said he was too tired to think about who to blame. Started bringing him coffee sometimes. He was always polite, always said thank you. Learned his name was Robert, that he'd been an electrician. Got divorced, fell behind on child support, lost his license, lost everything. Hasn't seen his kids in 5 years. Asked if he'd tried to fight the custody arrangement. He laughed, bitter. Asked with what money, what address, what standing. Said the system assumed he was dangerous until proven otherwise. And by the time you prove otherwise, your kids don't remember you. Matched with someone age appropriate finally, 44, works in construction management. His profile was sparse, but he looked kind. Met for coffee, he was nervous. Admitted he wasn't good at dating. Said he'd been focused on work, on taking care of his aging parents. Asked about his parents. He said his dad had dementia. His mum couldn't handle it alone. So he'd moved back in to help. Been doing it for 3 years. Sacrificing his own life for family. The trap of duty. But something about the way he talked about his father. The gentleness. We dated for a few weeks. He was consistent. Showed up when he said he would. Wasn't intellectual. Didn't engage with theory or politics. But he was steady. Reliable. Until one night he broke down, just started crying over dinner. Said he was exhausted, that watching his father deteriorate was killing him, that he had no one to talk to about it, that his friends had stopped calling, that he felt guilty for being tired, for sometimes wishing it would just end. The vulnerability was overwhelming, uncomfortable. Didn't know what to do with a man crying in a restaurant. Told him he should probably talk to a professional about this. He looked at me like I'd suggested something absurd, said he was talking to me, that he thought we were close enough. The pressure of being someone's emotional support, it was too much. Told him I thought we wanted different things. He wiped his face, nodded, said he understood, paid for dinner and left. Texted me later, apologizing for making me uncomfortable. The apology annoyed me more than the crying. Blocked his number. Jennifer called me into her office. There's going to be restructuring. My position is being eliminated. They're offering me a different role. Reports to someone 5 years younger than me. A man. Told Jennifer this was clearly discrimination. She pulled out documentation, years of HR complaints, performance reviews. My communication challenges had created a hostile work environment. Hostile. That word again. Took the severance package. Didn't fight it. Wasn't worth the energy. 45. Unemployment gave me time to think. Started noticing patterns in my own behavior I'd been blind to. How I'd approach every conversation with men as a battle to be won. How I'd find fault in whatever they did, even when they were trying. James paying for dinner was sexist. Jordan not offering to pay was cheap. Eric's protectiveness was patriarchal. David's lack of initiative was weak. Alex's confidence was entitlement. Tom's nervousness was fragility. Found old journals from my 20s. Read through them. Saw the evolution of my thinking. There was an entry about a guy I dated briefly at 26, before the collective. Wrote about how he made me laugh. How safe I felt with him. He'd wanted to get serious. I'd gotten scared and ended it. Told him I wasn't ready, that I wanted to focus on myself. Wonder what happened to him. Looked him up on social media. Married, 2 kids, looks happy. His wife's profile is public. Photos of family trips, school plays, ordinary life. She looks unremarkable. Works as a dental hygienist. Nothing special about her except she was probably capable of accepting love. The new coordinator at the collective asked me to speak at an event. Topic was maintaining your standards in a world that wants women to settle. Prepared my talk. All the usual points about refusing to compromise. Stood in front of 30 young women and started speaking. Saw their faces, eager and angry, and so sure. Saw myself at 28, believing I had it all figured out. Got halfway through and stopped. Asked them instead what they thought partnership meant. One said, equality. Another said respect. Another said refusing to accept less than you deserve. Asked what they were willing to give. The question seemed to confuse them. Asked if they'd ever considered what men struggle with. You could feel the room turn cold. One woman said men created their own struggles through patriarchy. Asked if she'd ever spoken to a man about his actual experience. She said she didn't need to. The data spoke for itself. Saw myself in her certainty. In her refusal to see individuals beyond the category. Finished the talk on autopilot, left early. Started seeing men differently after that. The guy at the coffee shop who always looked exhausted, wedding ring on his finger. Working 2 jobs probably, trying to provide for a family. The father at the park with his daughter, hyper aware of not getting too close to other children. How he positioned himself where everyone could see him, protecting himself from suspicion. Robert outside my building, invisible to almost everyone. Asked him once what he missed most. Expected him to say his house or his career. He said being touched, not sexually, just any human contact. Said it had been years since anyone had touched him with kindness. That being homeless made you untouchable. Being a man made you unworthy of care. Shook his hand, held it for a moment. He cried. Tried dating again with different intentions. Matched with someone. 46, high school history teacher. His profile mentioned his dog, his love of hiking. Nothing about success or status. Met him at a trail. Walked for 2 hours. He talked about his students. How many of the boys seemed lost. How they had no framework for healthy masculinity. No models to follow. How the girls were encouraged and supported while the boys were treated as problems to be managed. How 3 former students had died by suicide in the past 5 years, all boys. Asked what he thought the solution was. He said he didn't know, that admitting you didn't know was seen as weakness. That men were supposed to have answers, be strong, provide solutions. But sometimes you're just lost and scared and pretending you're not. Didn't offer my usual commentary. Just walked beside him and listened. We dated for a few months. It was different. He wasn't perfect, had his own baggage and scars, but he was genuine, present, trying. Asked him once what he wanted from a relationship. He said someone who saw him, who didn't need him to be anything other than himself. The simplicity of it struck me. All my requirements and standards and tests. Had I ever just tried to see someone? Brought him to a collective meeting against my better judgment. He sat quietly, listened to everything. One of the younger women asked his opinion on toxic masculinity. He said he thought the term was useful for describing harmful patterns, but counterproductive for reaching men who needed to hear it. That telling someone their fundamental nature is toxic just makes them defensive. The room erupted, voices talking over each other. He didn't defend himself, didn't argue back. Later I asked why he stayed quiet. He said those women didn't want a dialogue, they wanted a confession. and he'd learnt that some conversations aren't meant to be won or lost. Broke up with him 2 weeks later. Told him it wasn't working, that we were too different. He asked what changed. We'd been good together. Couldn't articulate it. Just knew I'd sabotage it eventually anyway. He accepted it with a sad resignation that seemed practiced, like he'd expected it all along. 46. The apartment is too quiet. Work at a new company. Keep my head down. Don't engage in office politics. My co-workers are polite, distant, professional. Spend evenings scrolling through social media, watching other people's lives. Sarah posted photos from her daughter's birthday party. The little girl is 4 now. Never met her. Was never invited. Emma announced her pregnancy, glowing in the photos with her teacher husband. His hand on her belly, protective and tender. The collective continues without me. I stopped going months ago. The certainty I used to feel there started feeling hollow. All that anger, all that analysis, and where did it leave me? My mother asked me to come for dinner tonight. Just family, she said. Nothing special. Sat at the table with my parents, watching them move around each other with practiced ease. 47 years of marriage, of compromise, and sacrifice, and choosing each other. Asked my father what made it work. He looked at my mother, smiled, said they decided to be on the same team. That marriage meant sometimes you're wrong, and you admit it. Sometimes your needs come second, and you accept it. Sometimes you're tired and hurt and frustrated, and you stay anyway. My mother added that it meant seeing each other's humanity even when it's hard. Asked if she ever felt like she settled. She looked surprised, said she chose adventure with an imperfect person over loneliness with her pride. That young people think settling means compromising your standards. But really, settling is refusing to compromise and ending up with nothing. Late at night, can't sleep, thinking about all the men I dismissed. The ones who tried to meet my standards and were rejected for trying. The ones who didn't try and were rejected for not caring enough. James, who paid for dinner and was punished for it. Jordan, who learned feminism and was punished for performing. Eric, who was vulnerable and was punished for fragility. David, who was careful and was punished for fence sitting. Alex, who was confident and was punished for entitlement. Miles, who shared his pain and was punished for manipulation. The construction manager, who cried and was punished for burdening me. Started making a list of what I actually wanted. Not the political requirements, not the ideological tests, just what would make me happy. Someone kind, someone present, someone trying. The list was so simple, it hurt. All those years of complexity, of contradictions, of impossible standards. And what I wanted was just someone to sit with in the quiet. Realized with absolute clarity that my standards were never about finding a partner. They were about ensuring I never had to risk being hurt. About maintaining superiority instead of seeking equality. About winning arguments instead of building connection. Every requirement was designed to be impossible to meet. So I could remain alone and righteous rather than partnered and vulnerable. Thought about the men I knew from the collective's discussions. Always theoretical, always the enemy, always the oppressor. Never Robert outside my building, invisible and untouchable. Never the construction manager watching his father disappear into dementia. Never the teacher watching his students struggle with no one to guide them. Never Miles losing time with his daughter over proven false allegations. Never the nervous nurse trying to care for patients who rejected his help. Men were struggling, genuinely struggling. And I dismissed every single struggle as less important than the systemic analysis. Individual pain didn't matter when you could categorize it as privileged suffering. But pain is pain, loneliness is loneliness, invisibility is invisibility. And I'd contributed to all of it with my certainty, my contempt, my refusal to see. The fertility window closed years ago. I know this objectively. The possibility of children, of family, of building something with someone. I'd told myself I didn't want it, that it was conformity to expectation. But sitting in this empty apartment, I know the truth. I wanted it, and I was terrified of it. So I built an ideology that made wanting it impossible. The good men aren't interested anymore. They're married to women who saw their humanity, or they're dating younger women who haven't weaponized their pain yet. Or they're alone too, broken by years of being treated as defective. And the ones who might still be interested, I've trained myself to destroy, to find fault, to test, to push away before they can leave first. Rachel's right. I've been cruel. To her, to the men I dated, to myself most of all. I built a prison of contradictions and called it principles. I chose anger over vulnerability and called it strength. I ended up alone and called it freedom. But freedom from what? From partnership? From risk? From love? From life? From ever having to admit I was wrong. From ever having to choose someone else's needs over being right. From ever having to be seen fully and possibly rejected. The ideology gave me permission to reject everyone first, to see their attempts at connection as proof of their deficiency, to interpret every action through the least charitable lens. Alex ordering for me was dominance, not an attempt at romance. Eric's chivalry was patriarchy, not politeness. The construction manager's tears were manipulation, not genuine pain. Jordan's feminism was performance, not growth. David's caution was cowardice, not learned self-protection. What if I'd chosen to see them charitably? What if I'd extended the grace I demanded for myself? What if I'd accepted that imperfect people are the only kind that exist? Too late now. The realization comes too late. The men who tried are gone, married, moved on, or too wounded to try again. The collective continues without me, training new women in the same certainties. My friends have built lives I mocked and secretly envied. The career I sacrificed relationships for ended in severance and restructuring. Sitting here at 46 with wisdom that would have changed everything at 28. Understanding now that men were struggling under the same systems in different ways. That their pain wasn't less real because it was different from mine. That partnership required seeing the person, not the category. That my impossible standards were protection, not principles. That I pushed away connection and called it consciousness. The apartment is silent except for the refrigerator humming. No one to call, no one waiting, no one wondering where I am. Chose ideological purity over human messiness. Chose being right over being loved. Chose certainty over curiosity. And I'm alone with my principles, my analysis, my perfect standards, and the devastating clarity that I did this to myself.